Hey, Warpugs. Today we're going to be checking out some VaatiVidya lore of Elden Ring, okay? So, this channel is becoming my one-stop shop for Elden Ring lore. There are so many great channels that, focus on particular franchises. Like, I wouldn't know jack about, Battletech if it wasn't for Big Red 40 Tech. If it wasn't for, Tex Talks Battletech, Sven Vander Plank. I wouldn't know jack about half of the things I know about, like weaponry with Kentucky Ballistics, with Zach Hazard. Guys, this is it for Elden Ring for me. Excellent channel, excellent channel, excellent channel. We're gonna jump right into this. Warpugs, links in the description down below. Be sure you go subscribe and hit the like button over on his channel as well as mine. Let's jump right in. It's time for some more lore. Let's go. I want to find out about the game I'll never play because to play it would cause me to have a stroke.
Everyone had this moment in Elden Ring.
Oop.
I think everyone had this moment in Elden Ring.
Okay.
You find a building hidden in the forest of Limgrave's Mistwood, and the door mysteriously opens of its own volition to reveal an elevator down that just keeps going and going, on and on, until you forget that you're even underground. The cavernous
I made a hot pocket. I don't know about you guys.
This roof is now so far above that it might as well be a false night sky, and the world below has life, light, and a culture of its own. But what's interesting about the environment down here is that it's actually a fusion of cultures. There are the dynastic remains infested with claymen, and then there's the ancestral grounds brimming with wildlife. But built amidst it all, between the ruins, beyond the ancestral grounds, and even hanging from the ceilings, are the incredible eternal cities inhabited by the Nox.
Huh.
For now, think of the Nox as just these enemies.
I'm telling you right now, if I were to ever play Elden Ring, it would just be to appreciate the landscape and the beauty of the game. That's what I would play Elden Ring for, and then I'd start screaming or coherently fighting a boss.
The monks, swordstresses, and night maidens of the eternal cities. The word Nox means night in Latin. Some of you might remember this from the phrase Verio Nox in Dark Souls, which was commonly held to mean fear the night. And this theme has carried over to Elden Ring, where fear and respect for the night is conveyed by characters like Ranni, who seek to usher in an age of stars.
Why is she holding the head like that? I need these answers.
Here beginneth the chill night that encompasses all, reaching the great beyond, into fear, doubt, and loneliness.
And just like the Age of Dark in Dark Souls, the coming Age of Stars is presented as a bit of an inevitability in Elden Ring. Or at least it might have been, were it not for Star-Scourge Radahn, who locked the stars out of motion and fettered the fate once writ in the night sky on behalf of the Golden Order.
Okay.
Again, this is just like
Dude, get off of the horse. You have 2 legs and that horse is depressed.
in Dark Souls, where the coming Age of Dark was stolen from mankind by a greater power. Yet, even now, the Age of Stars continues to be championed by a people called the Nox. Except now, the Nox have been banished to the underground, and here they live in this state of eternal anticipation, just endlessly waiting for a fate that has been taken away from them.
Dude.
We're never explicitly told which act it was that led to the Nox's banishment, but my best guess is that it has to do with this, the Fingerslayer Blade, which we loot beneath the giant's throne in Nokron. A part of its description reads, "This blood-drenched fetish is proof of the high treason committed by the Eternal City and symbolizes its downfall."
Oh, okay.
So, what was the nature of the Nox's high treason, then?
Dude, look at this. It's just eerie, man.
Well, this is a Fingerslayer Blade, one that is able to harm the Greater Will and its vassals. This blade is drenched in blood and proof of high treason, so it seems like the weapon was successfully used, but we can only really speculate on which pair of two fingers this blade might have been used on. Of course, it might have just been high treason to create this blade in the first place. This weapon is said to be born of a corpse, so let's take a closer look at its icon. It reveals a spine running up the blade and two arms that form the hilt. So clearly this weapon is born of a corpse, but...
Bro, this is a bit...
It's not the only weapon in-game that's like this. Remember that moment at the end of the game where the Elden Beast reaches into the ground and pulls a sword from Radagon's corpse? That is the Sacred Relic Sword, and it too is a spined spiral blade with a human forming the hilt. So to some in this item's description, this weapon represents the end of an age, and to others, the beginning. Now, I kind of doubt that the Finger Slayer blade is made from a corpse that's as powerful as Radagon, just because it seems so much smaller, broken, and limp. But regardless, it clearly was an attempt to bring about the end of one age and the beginning of another. Just so, the Finger Slayer blade can only be wielded by Ranni, who needs the weapon to claim her fate and achieve her ending. But this can only happen when you defeat Radahn and unlock the fate in the
Radahn, get off the horse, man!
night sky, because doing so sets free a star from the cosmos, which crashes into Limgrave, revealing the path to Nokron, the Eternal City, where the Finger Slayer blade lies hidden. There are multiple Eternal Cities that are spread widely across the lands between and located deep beneath the earth. First, we have the city of Nokron, that lies beneath Limgrave. The entrance to this city is torn open by Radahn's meteorite when we explore it, so all of the foremost buildings are ruined, but they form the path leading to this undisturbed, multi-layered city that's sort of tucked behind the dynastic remains and the ancestral environs that were built here long before.
Just look at this. The art here is just breathtaking. I absolutely love everything about this.
Then there's Nokron's twin, the city of Nokstella, which is located beneath Liurnia. I think most people would have got their first hint of this city when they wound up in the Ainsel River fighting the Dragonkin soldier of Nokstella, but the true city is further up from here, stretching out between long sections of ant-infested tunnels. Here, the Nox have actually learned how to ride these ants. The ants will happily turn on them if given the chance.
Bro. No, I'm just saying that is a horrible day, but I know there's at least 3 of you watching that are into this right now.
But there's a third city. A completely devastated, nameless city located beneath Leyndell, which is a place we'll have to talk about a little bit later in this video. These 3 cities just have incredible architecture. I love Nokron's massive inverted towers, and it's cool how Nokstella's shining city is built right into this low-hanging false night sky. Now, the game isn't really clear on whether these cities existed before the Nox's banishment underground, or if they were built afterwards. However, I'm inclined to think that they actually existed before their banishment. Take the Finger Slayer blade's description, for instance. This weapon is the most likely reason for the Nox's banishment, and it lays the high treason at the feet of the Eternal City. It doesn't blame the Nox, who would have existed above ground at some point. It blames the Eternal City. But regardless, while they at least might have already had these well-developed cities down here, their banishment was still a brutal punishment, because
could this have been, these guys have been the original inhabitants of these cities, the ones that built them?
The Nox would have been cut off from the true night sky, which was a core part of their culture. As some small comfort, I speculate that they created these false night skies, which are made of suspended white fragments. This they accept as they wait for the Age of Stars to begin. In order to learn more about these cities, though, I'd like to look at some data mined information. Of course, you have to take this with a grain of salt.
Of course.
But in version 1.0 of Elden Ring, the Eternal City buildings are frequently listed as Marika's ruins, and the Eternal City pavilions are Marika's pavilions.
Huh.
What's more, the Nox themselves are actually called Marika's descendants. This obviously has pretty huge implications, so let's try to break down Marika's ancestry and see if we can arrive at the Nox. So, Marika herself is of the Numen race, who, according to the character creation screen, are supposed descendants of denizens of another world. The only other supposed Numen in-game are the Black Knife Assassins, who, according to their silver armor, were all women and rumored to be Numen, who had close ties with Marika herself. And we have proof that these Numen Black Knives
Fridge always had in the snacks.
were tied to the Eternal Cities.
They say the assassins who carried out the deed were scions of the Eternal City.
So if we take Roger at his word, then it seems like Numen are indeed tied up with the genealogy of the Eternal City, and that Marika herself is likely one of the Nox's ancestors. You could go as far as to say that Marika is actually from an Eternal City too.
Okay.
She is called the Eternal, after all. But again, remember, this is data mined information that we're not really supposed to know.
Okay.
But at any rate, while the Nox might be descended from the Numen, I think enough time has passed that most Nox aren't really considered Numen anymore. If anything, they're now more akin to the Nightfolk, which is actually another descendancy you can choose for your Tarnished in the character creator. Nightfolk and Nox share similarly hued skin, and Nightfolk are a race that was said to bleed silver long ago.
Huh.
So let's finally
Yeah, that would have gotten them wiped out.
actually talk about the Nox monks, the priestesses, the Night Maidens, and the silver that they wield. The monks of the Eternal Cities are all men, and they fight with flowing weapons of liquid metal. So too do the Swordstresses, a female caste of the Nox who are agile warriors and serve as the personal guards of the Night Maidens. The Night Maidens themselves are said to be of the highest clerical rank. And
Okay.
it's definitely interesting that a group of maidens would be of the highest clerical rank. It's almost as if the Night Maidens exist as a sort of parallel to the Kindling Maidens of the Two Fingers, who serve the Tarnished so that they might become Lord. Because remember, a core part of the Nox culture is also about searching for a Lord to serve. Except unlike the title Elden Lord, the Nox are waiting for a Lord of Night. In a way, this Lord of Night is almost an imitation of the Elden Lord, which would make sense because the Nox are extremely well versed in the art of imitation. So let's talk about that. I think
The story of this, it reminds me in so many ways of elements of D&D, the Seldrine, and the High Elves, the Drow, things of that nature. It gives me kind of those kind of memories. I don't know if I'm drawing up a very false comparison here, but you can tell me down in the comment section below if I am. But it's kind of reminding me of that.
I think I speak for a lot of us here when I say that a core part of so many of our late game playthroughs were the Mimic tier Spirit Ashes, which copied the form of their summoner. And from a lore point of view, the whole point of this Mimic tier is actually to mimic the Tarnished who might become the Elden Lord. Its description reads, Mimic tiers are a result of an attempt by the Eternal City to forge a Lord. However, the description also says that their mimicry does not extend to imitating the summoner's will. This makes it seem like Mimic tiers are this tool, right? They're something to be used to achieve the Eternal City's ends.
I was wondering what those things were. I was hoping he was going to explain them.
So it's important to point out here that Mimic tiers are actually more accurately silver tiers, and silver tiers literally are tools, because they're wielded by the Nox as weapons.
Okay.
The Nox flowing
Really?
hammer and the Nox flowing sword are forged from the liquid metal of silver tiers and tempered to hardness. this gives them the ability to extend, bend,
so cool.
and, when wielded by the Nox, to drastically change their form into spiked shields and even giant hands. And what's kind of chilling to realize is that these weapons are actually living beings. This is all
That looks like a bad day.
quite clearly inspired by ancient alchemical conceptions of mercury, or quicksilver, which was this compound that was believed to be able to shift between liquid and solid states, as well as life and death. In-game, silver tears are called formless life, able to be reborn again and again into imitation. They are as much a substance as they are a living organism, and we see this in their multitude of forms: silver spheres, trolls, and even nightfolk, to name but a few.
So, just to make sure I'm capturing this right, these things are the nightfolk, they are the trolls, they are all these things. It's almost like nanotechnology, given sentience.
There's even this entire cut questline that would have had you bond with a silver mimic tear called Asimi. In the cut dialogue files, this mimic tear claims to have grown a desire for life and knowledge and lordship, and she desires to share the throne with you.
You could have become Elden Lord, and I could have become Sovereign Eternal.
I think, and I know a lot of you guys did as well when I mentioned this last time, I think this would have gone a really long way.
What are these
towards making
figures?
Players relate to the story of the Nox, and it would have made them question the Order of the Erd Tree even more. And after learning about this questline, I can definitely see why mimic tears and artificial life might have been this enormous threat to the Erd Tree's authority. The Nox were, after all, messing with these crucial things that the Erd Tree had come to govern. They were messing with the powers of life, death, and rebirth. Of course, we know that death was sacrosanct to the Erd Tree during its age. As I discussed in my video on death, many ancient methods of death came to be abandoned or shunned in favor of returning to the Erd Tree's roots instead, through the process of Erd Tree burial. All the old ways of death were abandoned. And as for rebirth, well, the Erd Tree is never really explicitly said to be able to rebirth beings. I think a lot of people just assume that it's implied, but there is a bit of evidence. Many depictions of the Erd Tree actually show human forms growing along its branches, just as they show human forms being absorbed in death by its roots. And you can't forget that an entire great rune of the Elden Ring explicitly governs rebirth. This is Renala's amber egg, and inside it is the great rune of the unborn.
In the end, Lady Renala was left alone, cradling the amber egg Lord Radagon bequeathed her.
Massive turtle in a Pope hat. I swear, every single time I watch one of these, I know myself. I know how bent out of shape I get when I play games like this. But for some reason, I really just want to sit down and start trying to play this game, even though I would suck at it. But Massive Turtle in a Pope hat is always a win. Let's go.
Now she devotes herself to it through forbidden rite, the grim art of reincarnation.
I think Miriel calls Renala's reincarnation a grim act here.
That is just creepy, and I don't care what you say. That is disturbing.
Because reincarnation already has a bit of a history with the Nox in the Lands Between, and Renala isn't the Erd Tree, so I can see how what she's doing might be a bit sacrilegious. She's even capable of using larval tears from the Eternal City, so Miriel, speaking as any follower of the Erd Tree would, understandably decries Renala's rebirths as forbidden rites. And when I searched for this phrase, forbidden rites, in my dialogue spreadsheet, I stumbled upon cut dialogue from Thops, who confirms that forbidden rites like this did indeed originate in the Eternal City. I don't think it's a coincidence that forbidden rites is the same phrase used for Renala and by Thops as well.
Oh, one more thing. Beware the Albinorics, accursed souls born of a forbidden rite of the Eternal City.
Okay.
the Albinorics. Albinorics seem to be a reference.
Dude, these things. I wouldn't be able to be around these things. These are uncanny valley to the maximum, okay? They look like babies. They look like really, really, really weird babies. Barely formed babies. No. Just no. This would freak me out.
To the ancient notions of artificial life, and that's something that's supported by the Albinoric blood clot description, which calls them life forms made by human hands. According to the Albinoric shield, Albinorics are said to have been created from a primordial drop of dew, which, to me, evokes the Erd tree's own imagery of dew, where drops of life dripped from the Erd tree's branches. It's sort of imitation in that way to me.
Huh.
The ripple blade that is wielded by young Albinorics echoes this, stating that ripples are thought to be at the origin of their species.
Okay.
Obviously, these are all references to liquid, and it suggests that Albinorics are born of the same liquid silver that we just discussed. An older description of the blue silver set also confirms this, calling Albinorics children of silver. And there are a few different types of Albinoric that can be encountered in-game. There are first-generation Albinorics who have withered legs and are called the Albinorics of old. And then there are second-generation Albinorics who resemble
Pea soup eating babies. Okay, I got you.
frogs and are called the young Albinorics. Let's discuss these first-generation Albinorics first.
Okay.
As far as enemy models go, there are the men, who are commonly the subject of torture and genocide, and then there are the women, who seem to have learned to defend themselves as Albinoric wolfback archers. This is probably a good time to mention, this isn't the only example in this video where the women of the culture are far more dexterous than the men. All of the Black Knives are women. The Nox Swordstresses defend the Knight Maidens, who are of the highest rank. And if we're talking about rank, then Caria and its princesses as well are a prime example of that. Speaking of Caria, actually, Pidia is an example of an Albinoric man that serves Caria, and other Albinoric men in Caria have clearly learned glintstone sorcery, not to mention Loretta, but maybe that's the story for another time. Moving on to the second-generation Albinorics. As newer Albinorics in the lands between, the formula for these artificial humans seems to have been improved, as they now have legs, which they put to comically good use.
What? Improved? That's a terrifying improvement.
Although Thops in his cut dialogue does say that they've lost the use of their tongues. So they really haven't got the formula quite right. There's something also going on with their heads, which From Software themselves call dumpy and frog-like. You can even loot the Albinoric mask, which is literally just their own face, skinned in an act of malicious mockery.
Bruh.
And I really shouldn't laugh, but it is kind of funny, admittedly, that even Elden Ring players are also guilty of genociding helpless Albinorics. There's this site in Mogwin Palace where it's just far and away the best way to farm runes, and thousands of players just kill these Albinorics over and over again. And it's just the perfect example of gameplay matching lore. Anyway, with all of this terrible shit happening to Albinorics, frankly, just for the sheer audacity of them simply existing, it's no surprise that they see Miquella's Halig Tree as a haven, but in talking about that, we're getting far away from the Eternal Cities, so let's get back to there. So, it appears the Eternal Cities weren't content with just birthing Silver Tears and Albinorics, because the Dragonkin, too, were born in the Eternal City. There are a tragic few that you can fight down there, and unlike the real stone dragons up above, they knew no true sky nor true lightning.
Sadness.
It seems these Dragonkin were created, I think, with the intent of achieving a sort of immortality.
This thing seriously looks like a Pacific Rim kaiju. I'm not even gonna lie. Look at the head. God, I love the artwork in this stuff.
Something that is suggested by the Dragon Scale Blade, which is an ice lightning weapon that reads, a weapon made by sharpening a gravel stone scale, thought to be the source of ancient dragon immortality into an unclouded blade. Alas, the Dragonkin soldiers never attained immortality and perished as decrepit, pale imitations of their skyborn kin. There's the word imitation again. And interestingly, just like the Fingerslayer blade is this hidden treasure of the Eternal City that is capable of harming the Greater Will, ancient dragon smithing stones too are a hidden treasure of Faram Azula, capable of creating weapons that can slay a god. So, like so many other things in this video, the Dragonkin almost seem like they are imitations that were born with a malign purpose. But just like Renala's children, and the first-gen Albinorics, these imperfect births only led to withered legs and a pitiful existence.
Everything that I watch about Elden Ring, the entire world just seems like it's dying, and it's going out in such a I struggle to find the right verbiage. Artistic way.
And now we finally arrive at the third city, the nameless Eternal City, which is located deep beneath the Erd Tree at the Deeproot Depths.
Sweet!
And it's lost its sky, its name, and even all traces of the Nox. And I believe we know exactly what is to blame for all of this. Astel, Bastard of the Void, is
okay. Whatever name he gave for this one, Bastard of the Void, it fits.
responsible. According to Astel's remembrance, it is a malformed star, born in the lightless void far away. And with all the force of a falling meteor, it seems, Astel destroyed an Eternal City and took away their sky. Logically, this nameless Eternal City is that Eternal City he destroyed, since it's absolutely devastated and it is missing its false night sky. And when the description says Astel took away their sky, I believe that's really literal. I think Astel really did take it away, far away, because we don't fight Astel anywhere near the nameless Eternal City. We fight it way further south. Almost as if Astel ruined the nameless city, then flowed all the way down the Ainsel River to the south, past Noxtella, and into an enormous cavern where it set up a suspiciously familiar night sky.
Dude. Okay, first of all, that is a hideous boss right there. That thing is nightmarish. There is no questioning it. I want it dead.
The Eternal Darkness spell tells us that it's this manifestation of the despair around the ruin of the Eternal City, and the spell in question is essentially this black hole with a powerful gravitational force drawing everything into it. The Astel don't seem like these super sentient beings to me, so what if they were mere animals, just drawn towards a sort of black hole, or maybe towards another powerful gravitational force, like a moon? Which brings us back to the city of Noxtella.
Okay.
Exploring Noxtella's tallest towers rewards you with the legendary Moon of Noxtella talisman, a treasure of theirs that represents the lost Black Moon. This moon apparently was once the guide of countless stars, and might have served as a sort of artificial moon below ground. But tragically, it seems this black moon was shattered into pieces, because fragments of this moon can be found in memory stones, which have a really similar gameplay function to the talisman, granting you additional memory slots. These stones are rightfully treasured by sorcerers, and above ground towers evoking those of the Eternal City would be built to protect these precious artifacts. I'm not sure how these fragments were stolen from the city, though over in Nokron there are examples of foreign forces making incursions into the city. These beings are members of the Company of the Fallen Hawk, a company of slaves that were ordered to explore the Eternal City. Logically, these soldiers are slaves of the Golden Order, but who were the Fallen Hawks before their enslavement?
Happier. From everything that I'm saying, they were a lot happier.
Well, there's this one little theory that I quite like by user NoContribution15 on Reddit that suggests that These fallen hawks could have once been common soldiers of Stormvale Castle, because these soldiers once had hawk crest shields and even a Stormhawk king, dating back to ancient times, back when there was a true storm in Stormvale. And so, as the theory goes, the crest for this company became that of an inverted hawk, symbolizing their fall and perhaps referencing the inverted towers of the Eternal City that they were doomed to explore. As for why they explore the city, the first thing that comes to mind is that they might have been sent here to look for the Finger Slayer Blade, which is the hidden treasure of Nokron, where the Fallen Hawks were sent, although this is mostly all just speculation. Whatever the case, it really helps to characterize these enemies for you. Otherwise, the only other observation we can make is that many of the Fallen Hawks can be found digging hopelessly in the ground, hands bloodied by their labor efforts to this day. Torches are an important part of their design, and this reinforces the idea that they're here looking for something, to the point where the band's last embers were used up in their long search, and then they began to burn the bones of their fellows, acquiring the cold ghost flame, and with this new flame in hand, they became dwellers of the underground for all eternity.
That is
like
just
with the Fallen
creepy.
Hawks, there are some really open-ended parts to the stories of the Eternal Cities, some things that are curiosities to me, and I welcome you to try and answer them. For example, the giant thrones with the giant Nox skeletons on them, they're almost a complete mystery, I think. The only place the game references these thrones are in the symbols for night sorceries and bubble sorceries as well. Beyond that, they're clearly a central part of Nox culture, though we don't know what purpose these beings had. Below each one, though, you can loot Great Ghost Glovewort, which were given in tribute to those
Get off the horse, my guy.
who died the most glorious of deaths, in the hope their stories would become legend. So it seems the Nox not only venerated these beings with giant thrones, but that their spirits as well were considered to be heroic, for their deaths were glorious. Another curiosity is the distorted bodies that are found in the Eternal Cities.
I was hoping he was talking about this.
Erupt from the ground, and many buildings as well, of the Nox. Are these other inhabitants of the city? Are their deaths related to the giants? What are these? And finally, there are the gargoyles that are found in the nameless Eternal Cities.
So, not even he knows what those things are, what they actually are. God, there's so much stuff in this.
Misshapen, ruined bodies. None of these gargoyles have been mended, but those that are mended with black corpse wax, and they serve Malakath, the Black Blade. Many of you will remember that 2 valiant gargoyles defend the path from Nokron to the Deeproot Depths, where the nameless Eternal City is. And interestingly, it's a coffin that takes you up there, suspended on a golden script. This golden script reminds me of the description of the Cipher Pater, which reads, "The furtive inscription appears to hang in the air, the language of light spoken by the 2 fingers." It makes sense that the 2 fingers would be aligned with these gargoyles that serve Malakath, and maybe some power of the 2 fingers is what takes you up to the nameless Eternal City in this coffin. Speaking of coffins, there's another coffin that you ride down from the Grand Cloister to Astel's lair, and there are a ton of coffins found in the Eternal Cities in general. Beyond being some absurd method of transport, perhaps sending remains along the river was some sort of burial rite?
It really wouldn't surprise me, because that seems to be a thing among many cultures already, the cultures that we know of. So it really wouldn't surprise me. Rivers and death are synonymous in a lot of cultures.
At any rate, many of these coffins have been waylaid along the Ainsel River tunnels, where ants feast upon the remains. And there's something fascinating going on with the ants as well. A lot of these have these enormous abdomens. These ants in particular are based off honeypot ants, which essentially function in nature as these living sources of food storage for the colony. And the Elden Ring variant drop one of the most valuable runes in the Lands Between. They drop a Newman's rune, which makes a lot of sense, because these ants are feasting upon corpses, and we did speculate earlier that Newman are indelibly tied to the Eternal Cities. I could speculate further, but again, I'd welcome your thoughts on these curiosities.
As above, so below.
Exploring the lands between in the modern era, it's clear that the Eternal Cities have had this significant cultural impact upon many things that we find above ground. You can take the walking mausoleums, for example. These have really explicit Eternal City architecture, which is something that you can't help but notice when you see one of them wandering down in the nameless Eternal City. These mausoleums, it seems, were appropriated from the Eternal Cities to house the remains of soulless demigods of the Golden Order, something that suddenly became very necessary to do after Godwyn's death. And this tracks because the Eternal Cities do have a bit of a history with spirits. We mentioned earlier that they entomb their heroic spirits with legendary glovewort, but even the rebirth monuments above ground that you need to summon spirits look kind of like Eternal City constructs. So I speculate that these might have been pioneered by the Nox, who, even if they didn't use these to summon spirits, they definitely might have used them to summon puppets, because puppetry is an invention of the Eternal Cities. To create a puppet of someone, you need them to drink a potion made of starlight shards, which are a prized item that was once used in the Eternal City as an ingredient in intoxicating drafts.
So literally the stuff they use to get crunk is what they use to make a copy of you. Nice!
Starlight shards are used for this because the stars command people's fates, and even the fates of the demigods, and so they can be used in potions given to create puppets with commanded fates. We know of 2 such puppets from the Eternal City, the Night Maiden and Swordstress puppets, who became puppets of their own volition. So keen were they, it seems, to serve the Eternal Cities. But when you look at all the puppet summons that you can get in Elden Ring, these 2, the Night Maiden and the Swordstress of the Nox, these 2 are a bit of a special case, because most puppets we find are actually controlled against their will, and are extremely unwilling to serve their masters. An excellent example of this are the puppets that are controlled by Celivis, or should I say Pidia, who turn on him immediately when they're given the chance. These puppets are Knights of the Cuckoo, a faction that are explicitly aligned against Caria, and yet these knights are forced to fight on Caria's behalf here in Caria all the same. Carians also seem to have appropriated a lot of the tools of the Eternal Cities, like puppetry and inverted towers as well, which is only natural considering how much they actually have in common with the Eternal Cities. Carians are descended from astrologers, who also venerated the night sky. Another example of an invention of the Eternal Cities that the Carians use is found at the Church of Vows, which features a Nox statue taken straight out of the Eternal Cities. Here at the church, Radagon famously repented his territorial aggressions and cleansed himself with celestial dew. Celestial dew is another draft of the Eternal Cities. It's called a night tier, which reverses all antagonizations and moves fate backwards, in a sense, to a time or a feeling before those antagonizations took place. And eventually, faraway descendants of the Eternal would finally be found above ground as well. This is in Celia, within Caelid. Gowry calls...
It's the constant feel of stagnation that really gets me with this. It's the stagnation, it is the decay, it's the ruin of everything. There's nothing in this world that seems to be fresh and new. Everything seems to be falling apart at this point. Even there's so much in the ways of like death and the afterlife. So I just don't know like what to say about it, except that it's breathtaking to see.
Celians, descendants of the Eternal. And in addition to having one of those signature thrones at the center of the city, there's also a couple of Nox bosses here. And finally, Celians were famed for their Knight class of sorceries, which their assassins made good use of. The Celians were also really proficient at turning invisible, which is an art that the Black Knives used, since they are, after all, also scions of the Eternal Cities. And It's just amazing how it all overlaps in the end. And in the end, another group would seek inroads to Nokron. This is when we play the game. These were Iji, Blythe, and Rani. Rani is a character that inherits a lot of the Nox's legacy. She becomes the final chapter in a story that they started to tell so long ago. Prepare to cry, because I can't wait to cover her story properly, as it deserves. But before I go, I want to share a quick word about Audible. Speaking of people banished to the underground, I actually have the perfect audiobook to recommend to you guys today.
Go for it!
And that's Metro 2033. New members can try Audible free for 30 days. Just visit audible.com/VaatiVidya or text VaatiVidya to 500 to get your free trial started today. This is the story that inspired the video game of the same name, and it reveals this world where mankind are resigned to the train tunnels underground after some sort of nuclear disaster turned the surface into this radioactive wasteland.
In other words, we are living in the world of Krieg now.
Bandits, monsters, and other horrors
live
below now in the tunnels, and listening to this audiobook will really transport you there. Check out this sample.
It made Artyom shudder to imagine the tunnel beyond the 700th meter. It was horrifying just to think about it. No one had the guts to go beyond the 700th meter to the north. Patrols had made it to the 500th, and having illuminated the boundary post with the spotlight on the trolley and convinced themselves that no scum had crossed it, they hastily returned. Even the scouts, big guys, former Marines, would stop at the 680th meter. They'd turn their burning cigarettes into their cupped palms and stand stock still, clinging to their night vision instruments. And then they'd slowly, quietly head back, without taking their eyes off the tunnel, and never turning their backs to it.
The narrator for this title is really good, and they really nail the Russian accents and just the voice acting as well for your immersion.
Nice.
New members can listen to Audible free for 30 days. So, to listen to this, head to www.audible.com/VaatiVidya or text VaatiVidya to 500. Thank you to Audible for sponsoring this video.
Guys, Elden Ring, there's so much in the way of death there, and there's so much in the way. I don't even know the proper verbiage to really go through this, to really go through Elden Ring. Everything looks so decrepit, decayed, but at the same time it looks so good. The Eternal City, on the other hand, looks relatively well maintained in comparison to everything else that you see. Everything else is overgrown, roots are coming up everywhere, nature seems to be reclaiming everything, although the creatures that are around are deformed, they're like misshapen, they're just not the same. Guys, the artwork of this game is absolutely breathtaking. I could rant on about this for hours. I really could. The artwork of Elden Ring is unbelievable. Okay? The feeling that I get from it, though, when I look at the world itself, is this world is on the verge of dying, and everything on it is on the verge of going away. Poor Pugs, am I right in this? Let me know in the comment section down below. Check out more of VaatiVidya's links in the description down below. Check out mine. Get yourself a shirt. Ooh, Platoon, wear Weebsy for free. My wife chuckled when she came up with that. I will catch you guys next time. Join us a member of Patreon for early access. This game, I should not play it for my own mental health. But man, I love learning about it because it's just so cool. Some days I just get caught up in the visuals. And yeah, I'm shutting up. Warpugs, thank you for spending some time with me. I'll catch you next time.